first three petitions of the Lord's Prayer are about, as we've talked about before, three sacrifices. They're about the sacrifice of thought, the Luciferian thought, for the divine name, which we'll find out. And these three things relate to different petitions of the Lord's Prayer, but they're about the sacrifice of the Luciferian thought, which is tied up with who you are. As an ego, you are a separateness. When you're thrown into the world, as in existentialism, Heidegger calls it thrownness, because you're not connected to essence when you're thrown in. That's because of the fall. That's because of the worshipping of the serpent, eating the fruit from the serpent. Everyone, don't forget to join the Greenwood Fellowship on my website. It's incredibly rewarding and beneficial to have a walled garden of other serious people on this path of initiation, to share experience and wisdom together as we all progress. You'll have access to membership videos, the second half of all lectures and streams, monthly think tanks with senior members, senior group streams on our YouTube, and soon in-person events, conferences and meetups. Please join the fellowship. There's three that are about the sacrifice of thought, feeling, and the will, which are tied up with the oath of obedience, poverty, and chastity. So they're the first three petitions. Then there's four others, which are to do with the man in his non-transcendent self aspects, the unconscious, the ego, the physical body, what esotericists call, in terms of the unconscious, I talked about last week, the vital body and the astral body. These terms will kind of scare people. They're just things that they came up with to really talk about an area of where sin and guilt is, and then an area where will is in the unconscious, really. Another word for it, vital body is one word for it. Etheric body, they also call it. But it's just talking about the unconscious, like I talked about last week. And so it's to do with that. The different things that make you up as an organism. This whole prayer deals with the complete man and his harmony with collaboration with God. And that's what it is. It's about the new option. It's about, instead of having to repay every wound with revenge, you can pray to your Father to be released of it, and he'll intervene. So that it's the new justice, it's the new covenant. The Lord's Prayer is about that. That's how important it is. And so, I mean, it's something you should be doing daily, but we'll get into why as we go into the Lord's Prayer and how deep it is. But it is essentially about healing and healing karma. Again, karma, I only use that word because the Western vernacular is used to that for meaning what goes around comes around. What goes around does come around. Karma is like a mist that surrounds you. Destiny is like a mist that surrounds you, that you can't get rid of, that there's nothing that you can do to get rid of this stuff. There's no therapist or demonologist, as I called Peterson, and all therapists are kind of demonologists. There's no demonologist that can help you in this region. They can only help you with the domain of will. They can't help you with the vital body, the deep, where elements of your character are. These, it was described by esotericists. I think Rudolf Steiner talked about this. The vital body as like the hour hand, and the astral body like the minute hand, in terms of your being, your character, like deep set characterological things that have been since you were a baby, heredity. And then the astral body are the more recent things, your more recent desires and lusts and that sort of thing, of the will, to give you an idea of the difference between those two things in esotericism, quote unquote. Not like Christian esoteric, like Christian Hermeticism anyway. Name is, in the biblical sense, is deeper than just a label. It's locked up and to do with also like divine knowledge and mission. It means mission in the Bible. It also sort of means it encompasses your whole being. So to say, hallowed be your name, is to ask for in a sense, to ask for the Lord to be present. It's to have your low empirical name, your given name. Your parents give you a name, and in the Germanic sense, it used to be your profession, right? Your name, the knowing space that you are, is again that Luciferic name. So this is about the sacrifice of the petition itself is only granted through a justification, and that is by the sacrifice of thought. How is that done? Not just in the prayer, but outside of the prayer, in poverty, through concentration, through monastic silence, through concentration without effort. If you don't know what that is, go to my earlier videos about that. But yeah, holiness. What is holiness? Well, it's something that can actually be, in a sense, holiness is the name too, is his name. And that in the sacrifice of the low empirical subject and his thought, that emptiness allows for God to be present. By sacrificing your sin, by getting rid of your sin, that holiness can be present. And so it's very complicated. It's calling for more than, but it is about the sacrifice of thought, but it's about deep things, and also an unutterable name as well. But we could just talk about how it's justified as well, because it's partly justified by the image and likeness of God is in all of you, all of us. His word, the letters of his word are that image and likeness. The word I am, or I amness, is the esoteric name of God. I am that I am. I am. Well, what does that mean? You go, and existentially you think I am. I am. You don't just look at the proposition. You can sort of look at your I amness here now as it watches this stream, as it watches this video. That I amness, okay, let's talk, that's the self, right? Okay, the self. It's behind that. There is no human word for that word, but your I am, and he is that I am. He's more I than you yourself are. He's more I behind that. So there is no, a human cannot utter his name. It's not even just about what the names are given, but there is an inherent security to that name I. I can't be given to anyone else. It can't be given to an object. Only an I can say I. It can't be, I can't say I about you. You're you. So there's an inherent security to it. And thankfully, because it protects it from cosmic R word of Araman and satanic forces, right? They could get into the language, because the language is very, demons play with the language, for instance. That's something that happens. That's very, they infect the language. But you can't get at that one unless you stop people, as they do with pronouns. They matter, right? Stopping people from using pronouns actually is a definite demonic tactic. But for now, the I is secure. But what does that mean? Again, for it to be justified, the petition for his name to be hallowed, it's for its own sake anyway. So it's the chief value. So it can be so, and he can be present in your experience by your sacrifice of the low Luciferic intellect. But that I, your image, the image of God that's with you, in you, the image and likeness, they are the letters that make up the word of God. So you have to justify it, acknowledge the freedom in every human of that. Because in each of these petitions, it's like, forgive them their sins, forgive my sins, forgive my trespasses. But for my sins to be forgiven, I have to forgive other people's sins against me. There is an implicit element like that. See how you have the justification there with that? You've got you've got what you have to do, and you've got the petition at the same time. Each petition has an implicit justification. So we're going to go through each one of them today. And this one is that it has to be justified by the overarching harmony of God's idea for you and everyone else that make up the letters of his word, let's say. And so you have to acknowledge that to justify it in everyone else. Because all these petitions are collective in the Lord's Prayer. Notice that the Lord's Prayer is not my Father, it's our Father. Always, that you're asking on behalf of humanity. If you don't do this, it's not heard. If you don't understand it this way, it's not heard. You know, it has to be collective because it's to do with original sin, for one thing, which is a collective thing, an original guilt, which is part of what the Lord heals in you, but also for something that you do as a sin in facticity out there is a collective thing. It's done in the world. You can't, again, this is why you can't fix the sins. That's why forgiveness has to occur. You can't fix it. It has to be God that heals it out of you. Those things will always come up as haunting demons of your past unless you go through the forgiveness exercises, quote unquote, of the way, truth of the way, which is part of the way, unless you go through that. And I've got a video on the specifics of that, of how to do it, you know. But yeah, so every one of these is justified, has to be justified. But the key is it's the sacrifice of thought. You are doing that to allow his name to come forth for the sake of his holiness, because holiness must be present. It isn't present now. It's hidden away because of our Luciferic and aromatic nature, because of our satanic nature, because of this all-encompassing techne or technology that's filled everything and dominates everyone and pushes everyone to do everything. Your God isn't God. You worship capital most of the time. I did too. I'm not addressing it just to you. Anytime I say you, it's about me as well. But our God, I mean, mine's not now, but the center, even most of the sort of low caps Christians are their master's capital, their master's techne, the master's, you know. So his name must be hallowed. And you must make the sacrifice for it to be hallowed so he can be present for you. But you have to do it first. You have to do the justifications first. And the prayer helps. The prayer makes that intervention because you're asking for him to miraculously help other people do these things. It's because it's always collective. It's always collective. So the prayer is always working magic. It's not doing it, but the collaborative element is doing it because you're always praying on behalf of someone else. That reaches the Father because it's behalf of everyone. It's everyone because everyone has the image. Doesn't matter how demonic the things are that they've done. They have the image and likeness of God. And so I've got here, may the holiness that is you be present. That's what you're asking for its own sake. May the truth be known of your secret kingship. He is the secret fire. But I think you understand what I'm saying there. You have to sacrifice your lower cap's truth for his truth so he can be present. That's the point. Anyway, so the chief thing is it's about, oh yeah, that's another thing I should talk about, is that the highest thing of humans can do is to bear the crown of thorns, is to, once you've experienced the holiness, help others to find it. The highest mission, which is the mission of the name, is to unite heaven and earth, is to have the holiness be present. So that's the name. And the highest thing a human can do is to help in that. And that's a crown of thorns, because people will look at your videos on mystic experience and say, oh, schizopost or whatever, whatever it might be. But you have to do it. That's the crown of thorns. You have to do it. You have to help. But that's the highest mission. that the name be hallowed, because it is. Because without that hallowedness, it's a separateness, and we worship the ultimate separateness from God, which is the evil one, which we'll get to. So a big thank you to all our members, contributors, producers, who you see here in this plaque of honor. Without your financial help, this fellowship wouldn't be possible at all.